Idaho Report's producer Ruth Brown sat down Friday morning with Representative Bruce Skaug, chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, to discuss criminal justice bills he sponsored relating to the death penalty.
Thanks for joining me, Representative Skaug. Idaho is now the only state in the country to use the firing squad as its primary method of execution. That was a bill you sponsored. Walk me through the reason that we did that.
6 to 7% of intravenous injections of pentobarbital or other medications, so to speak, fail on executions. And I thought, well, that is cruel and unusual punishment in a way, and I couldn't talk that way until we passed this bill, because someone is about to be executed and then it fails. Well, that's not good for them or anybody else involved in the procedure. Firing squad is quick, it's certain, there's no failure. The person that is condemned is unconscious immediately. So I think it's the more humane way to go, and as does the Idaho legislature and the governor.
The details of the bill do allow the director of the Idaho Department of Correction to carry out most of the details in which an execution would be carried out. And that's the way it is now currently under execution by lethal injection. Do you have any concerns with leaving that much power to one person?
I do not. The director is responsive. The past director is very responsive to me, very responsive to the governor, and wants to do it right, the past director. We have a brand new director just announced yesterday or the day before, so immediately I went to her to make sure that we're able to get the firing squad remodel of the facility done. It's on track, it will get done. She'll carry out her duties. Now the past director wanted to do it mechanically by button pushing to firearms, and she may or may not do that. I haven't asked her what she thinks is best. So we'll wait and see, but it will get done.
Okay. Senate Jude and Rules yesterday passed a bill related to executions. In some cases of lewd conduct with a child, and it would only be in cases where the child is younger than 12 and there are aggravating circumstances, the death penalty would be an option. Walk me through what was your rationale around that bill?
We tried to bring that bill, Josh Tanner and I, last year, but there wasn't time to get it through, or really the Senate stopped it in committee, and they rightfully did so. We needed to redraft that. So we modeled it after Florida and Tennessee, who currently have that law, and 5 other states are trying to pass the same type of law this year. I believe Idaho is going to get it through the Senate. It's going to be signed by the governor, and we will have death penalty for. There are some things that are worse than death. Some testimony we had was a child was raped at age 1 and the perpetrator filmed it. Those things make you gut sick, as they should. There are things worse than death. A child, for instance, North Idaho, raped from ages 4 to 9 by the perpetrator, who got a 20-year sentence. Sounds tough, but eligible for parole within 1 year. And that's not enough for taking someone's life. The child lives, but really their life is taken. And that the most heinous of crimes should be punished with the death penalty. Idaho believes now, through their representatives, I think that's going to happen. It'd be very, very rare that we'd have a case like that. And it's uphill because we have a Supreme Court battle. We'll be challenged on it. But on that rare case, viewers of your station are going to hear about that, and they're going to say, yeah, that's the guy that should be executed.
So something that came up in committee that I wanted to ask you about, for viewers that don't know, when a prosecutor files an intent to seek the death penalty, that defendant must have death penalty qualified attorneys. These are attorneys that are not just your regular public defenders. They have additional training. At last count, I think there's only about maybe 30 or 40 of them in the state. There's between 200, 300 cases of lewd conduct filed every year. I guess, are you concerned with the lack of death penalty qualified defense attorneys, and what happens if there's a case where the defendant doesn't have a death penalty qualified attorney?
A person, if they have the funds, can hire any attorney they want, whether they're death qualified or not. And we had one of those cases recently go to trial in Ada County with a private attorney. Yes, I am concerned that we don't have enough qualified attorneys for such defenses with our public defenders, and we're working on that now. There should be a funding that comes through this state, and hopefully we'll get some more. But look at Florida. They've had this law since 2023, and they've had one case. And they have a much larger population, so it is going to be rare. I'm not worried about there being a plethora of death penalty cases on this new law. They'll be rare, but they'll be the right ones, I believe.
So I believe in the Florida case, that was a case they used. There was a plea deal eventually. It wasn't an ultimate death sentence.
Correct. They brought that, and they want to test case like we will, like Tennessee will, like probably other states will, to go to the U.S. Supreme Court. But they did a plea deal at the end of that was life, I believe, life without parole.
So you mentioned this being a test case. I've heard you talk many times about the state's budget, and in 2008, the Supreme Court declared it unconstitutional to execute a person for a sex crime. Are you concerned about the cost of the legal challenge that likely is to come if this were to be used?
The legislature and Idahoans have not been shy about constitutional challenges. We've constantly fought on the issue of abortion. We fight other issues, Women's Protection Sports Act, those kind of things that we believe we should fight. The U.S. Supreme Court has changed drastically from that 5-4 close decision that struck down the Kennedy versus Louisiana case in that one. I believe the result will be different, and we just have to push forward for the victims and their families of these awful cases. So I'm looking forward to that test case, whether we have to pay for it or we just trail along with Florida or Tennessee. Either way, we're going to jump on board. We have a good attorney general for this type of case.
I want to bring up one other thing that came up in committee, and that's, as you know, you're an attorney. In child sex abuse cases, the perpetrator is often known to the victim. And there were concerns about underreporting, meaning folks not reporting because they know that if they turn in their father or their uncle or their family friend, they could potentially be killed by the state. Are you concerned about this causing underreporting of sexual abuse, or has that been something that's been brought up to you?
It's been discussed, but we had the prosecutors answer that in committee in the Senate just recently. They don't see that will change one way or the other. It's already difficult to report. I prosecuted some of those when I was a young prosecutor. Very difficult to report. Our public defenders, our prosecutors, our defense attorneys, our judges, our juries, everybody has to deal with these. It's heart-wrenching, and you cannot unsee the awful things you have to see in going through these cases. But then think about the victim that actually goes through this in their life, and that's who we're out to protect. I think it will be a deterrent, and I think it will be fair retribution for the most awful crimes, I think, that someone could commit.
Okay. Shifting gears a little bit, we're going to talk about a constitutional amendment that you pitched, a bill that, well, you explained to me. Talk to me about what the bill would do.
HJR 4.
Yes.
In 2026, it's going to be on your ballot, and it'll be called Prop 1. Vote yes for it, please. It only allows the legislature to legalize drugs that are currently illegal. And we did that because we look at states like Colorado and Oregon and others where the initiative process was used to get by the legislature and legalize drugs. Millions and millions of dollars were brought in for those campaigns to convince people that this was the way to go. And those campaigns were full of lies. There's no state that's been made better by the legalization of these drugs or marijuana. Nobody has told me it's a better state because of this. Now Colorado is the center for I'm looking for the word gangs and the illegal organizations. I forget the name of the main gang, but they're in Colorado, and they use that because it's a sanctuary state to not cooperate with the feds on marijuana and other drug prosecutions, and that's where real problems are coming out of for the whole nation. So, Idaho, you're going to be able to vote to give the legislature only the power and not the initiative process to legalize those drugs, keep a watch on it. And that means we may legalize marijuana someday. I wouldn't support that, but maybe we will if the science and medicine supports that. Right now, it does not.
Opponents of this amendment say that it's an effort to get to, backing up, there have been efforts, unsuccessful efforts, to get a citizens' initiative on the ballot to legalize marijuana. One day in the future, that could happen. Opponents of this bill say that it's an effort to try and get out ahead of the citizens and shut down any potential of them getting a citizens' initiative on the ballot regarding marijuana. What would you say to that?
Again, this bill isn't just about marijuana. It's about heroin, fentanyl, all the drugs that are harming our families, our friends. We've all been affected in some way. If you have friends and family at all, somebody you know has been affected badly by the drugs or even killed in an overdose. So it's not just about marijuana. It's to, just as I said, it's to protect us from being rolled over by millions of dollars from these out-of-state interests to make the citizens vote for this. Now, they're giving us the power, so it's up to the citizens if they want to do that for the legislature. Please vote yes on Prop 1.
Bruce Skaug, I appreciate your time. Thanks so much.